Welcome to the stream. Let me know if the sound is okay. Also, let me know if the music is too loud or too low. Sound levels are fine. Thanks, FPL FOMO, for always letting me know about the sound. I know that there is a way to monitor the sound, but then I'll have to use a headset plugged into my microphone, and yeah, I need to learn that someday. But for now, thanks FPL FOMO for always confirming if the sound is good enough. That's my weekly job, yeah, and it's really appreciated. Thanks for tuning in to most of my streams. I can say like everyone, every stream. It's really appreciated. We're ready for the next game week. Game week 17 will be once again. I think that game week 17 will be a game week where there will be a lot of points, some good captaincy options for game week 17 as well. So I think that it's really important to be on the right side of the captaincy for game week 17. I brought in Mo Salah yesterday, sold Kevin De Bruyne. So Salah, he will probably be my captain for game week 17. I know it's maybe not that exciting captaining Mo Salah, but since I transferred him in this game week, it feels like the best captain option, to be honest. Son to Bruno Fernandes this week for me. Salah captain, playing Cunha, Rodgers first bench. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people over at X losing patience with Rodgers during the week, and it makes sense. I think that he has like one return in the last 6 game weeks or something like that. We know that Aston Villa have a lot of fixtures coming up. The pictures does look really good though from next game week. So I don't necessarily see Rodgers as a sell, but for game week 17 it's perfectly fine to have Rodgers on the bench. Cunha, I will play him as well. It was kind of weird reading the words from the press conference today when the new manager was asked about Cunha's availability, and he was like talking about fitness issues and not mentioning the ban at all. I don't know if that's like mind games or something like that, but it looks like Cunha will be available and ready to play on Sunday. So I will start Cunha. I actually like Buonanotte as well first on my bench. So if Cunha got the ban, I wouldn't be too annoyed because Buonanotte playing against Wolves might actually be a really good option as well. I think Rodgers could do okay this week by playing Pedro rather than Rodgers. Yeah, I agree. Especially when we have someone like Joao Pedro. I know that he is cheap, and I know that Brighton will probably see rotation going forward and during Christmas, but when we have a player that started the last game weeks and is on penalties, I think that it makes sense to start him. Ivan, welcome to the stream, Ivan. I'm actually kind of surprised to see that Amad Diallo is the most transferred in player so far ahead of game week 17. 645,000 new managers for Amad, of course. I know his potential and I know about his price. Really good enabler, but so many transfers in is kind of surprising, even though I think that he's a decent option. Do you think Son is worth removing because he's 10 mil and doesn't really return like premium? Well, the thing is, I started with Son and I actually have had Son in my team for 2 periods so far this season, and I really like him as a fantasy option. So it's like what we want in a fantasy player, right? Because he is nailed on when he's fit, he's on penalties, wide, so he's not getting into positions where he can like finish off their attacks. So at the moment I don't see the value in Son, to be honest. But it kind of depends who you want to bring in, of course. But to be honest, I actually think that Saka is similar to Son, especially in some games when they play against tight defenses. Saka, he tends to play too far out right, and his points potential mostly comes from whipping the ball into the box and hoping for the best, and that's like how some of the Spurs games have looked for Son as well. But of course, when Spurs, when they play open, when they can have some transitions, counterattacks, then he suddenly becomes a really good option again. So yeah, generally speaking, I don't think that Son is worth 10 million at the moment, but there's always a risk involved when you sell Son in fantasy, of course, but it kind of depends what you want to do with the money. Maybe remove Son and Wissa for Bowen and Isaac for a -4. I think that this is probably worth a hit in my opinion. Isaac, he is really on fire again. He's fit. Wilson is injured, so he's nailed on as Newcastle's number 9, and he is on penalties. Decent fixtures as well for Newcastle, so I really like Isaac as an option. I've actually considered bringing him in myself this game week, especially if Cunha got the ban. I would probably have sold Cunha to Wood and upgraded Havertz to Isak. But since Cunha looks most likely to play on Sunday, I will just keep Cunha and Havertz and hope for the best and avoid the hit. But yeah, Ivan, I think that your transfers make sense and that -4 points will probably be paid back during the next game week or a couple of game weeks. So yeah, I say go for it. I like Bowen as well. We know that he is playing as West Ham's number 9, and West Ham, they have decent fixtures as well. Bowen is their captain at the moment. It's not on penalties though. That was a real disappointment last game week. Paqueta took the penalty. I was really hoping that Bowen would take it, but I think Bowen probably is next in line. At least that's what the rumors says, and on the West Ham fan forums saying that Bowen is probably next in line. So hopefully Jared Bowen can step up. He did really well in game week 15, of course, but a blank in game week 16. But I'm not too worried about Bowen. It wouldn't be my main priority to bring in, but definitely a decent option. So Salah, he is the bookie's favorite for anytime goal scorer for game week 17. 50% chance for a Salah return or a Salah goal in game week 17. Next on the list is a familiar name that hasn't really performed lately, Haaland, playing against Aston Villa away, 48, so close to Salah. And the next on the list, number 3, is Isak, playing away against Ipswich with 45. So pretty close between them. Salah, Haaland, Isak. It's kind of worrying that I only have Salah, to be honest, but as I said before this season, I don't really see the value in Haaland when you're not going to captain him. 15 million. Maybe Bowen is only short-term pick considering City and Liverpool in the next 4. Yeah, that's the thing with West Ham assets. So I have had Jared Bowen on my watch lists actually the last 2 or 3 game weeks, but this game week I have Gordon, Mitoma and Ahmad actually. And Jared Bowen is off my watch list as a potential transfer in, but I don't necessarily see him as a bad pick. But the week to bring in Jared Bowen was probably around game week 15 or last game week, but could still do well, of course. And we know that especially Man City, they have not been really good defensively for the last game weeks, so maybe Man City is not that bad of a fixture at the moment. maybe actually playing against Man City is a really potentially a really good fixture for Jared Bowen, because they will probably get some transition. City, they will have a lot of possession still, even though they are not performing at their best level. They still have a lot of possession, and they are vulnerable at transitions. So Jared Bowen playing up top for West Ham could be actually a really good option in the West Ham against Man City game. A couple of new subscribers already. Thanks for subscribing, guys. Really appreciated. So it's 2,670 subscribers. That's really, really great. I started making videos last season, and this is actually the first season when I started doing streams, Q&As, and deadline streams. So really appreciate the support, and thanks all for joining in. Make sure to like the stream if you enjoy it, to attract even more people into the chat, and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in those kind of live streams. I usually do a Q&A Friday night before the deadline. When I find the time, I do a deadline stream on Saturdays, and I always post a weekly video when I talk about the last game week and my team selection for the next one, an updated watch list, and the captain selection for the next game week. So if that sounds interesting, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It would be really, really appreciated. So far in the chat, we discussed some midfielders and forwards. The most transferred out player ahead of GW17 is Ait Nouri, so I know that a lot have sold Ait Nouri to bring in Robinson because of Fulham's really good fixtures. The news about Kenny Tete's injury today, I think that Robinson probably is not the best option from Fulham anymore. We also got positive news about Anderson. The 4.2 defenders, Anderson and Castani, are probably a bit better value than Robinson at the moment. We're not sure if Anderson will play, so I have him on my bench in case he is eased in. But when it comes to Castani, I would probably go for him if I knew about the Tete injury a couple of days ago. I had to go early with one of my transfers because Ait Nouri, he was dropping in price. So to make sure I had the funds for the Kevin De Bruyne to Salah move, I had to go early, so I did the transfer on Tuesday, selling Ait Nouri, bringing in Anderson, and yesterday I sold Kevin De Bruyne to bring in Mo Salah. Mo Salah, he will probably be my Game Week 17 captain as well. So I had a look at the Spurs stats as well. So this is Spurs stats from the last 4 game weeks. They kept 1 clean sheet and actually only conceded 6 goals, so that's really not that bad. But when we take a look at big chances conceded, shots on target, and expected goals conceded, they are one of the worst teams. So 15 big chances conceded the last 4 games, that's 19th in the league, only beaten by Southampton. Shots on target 25, and they have actually an expected goals conceded of 8.96 in 4 game weeks. So I think that they probably have been a bit lucky by only conceding 6 goals. We know that Romero and Van de Ven, they are out game week 17. Vicario as well, their first choice goalkeeper. So I do believe that Mo Salah, even though the fixture on paper doesn't look that good, I think it's grey in the fixture difficulty rating in FPL as well, playing away against Spurs. And Spurs actually did well, of course, in game week 16, and they won against Man United midweek, but the fact that Spurs played on Thursday actually has some say as well, because they have had 1 less day to rest. So yeah, I see no reason to go against Mo Salah for the captaincy in game week 17. But my advice, if you need a defender, Fulham, really good team. They are actually second when it comes to the bookies' predicted clean sheets for game week 17 as well. So Fulham and their game against Southampton, they have been given a 40% chance of a clean sheet, so that's second, only beaten by Arsenal playing against Crystal Palace. So Arsenal 42, Fulham 40, really close. So if you need a new defender for game week 17, Fulham is probably the team to target. Robinson, a really good option. He is the second most transferred in player ahead of game week 17, but after the news about Kenny Tete, I think that Castani maybe is the better option. And I also like 4.2 priced Anderson. We know from last season when he plays for Crystal Palace, he is a big threat at set pieces as well. No surprise to see Ait Nouri being the most transferred out player. Suspended for game week 17, and when he's back in game week 18, he's still one yellow card away from a new one match ban. So when we also consider that the Wolves fixtures gets really tricky going forward, I definitely think that Ait Nouri is a sell at the moment. So if you have Ait Nouri and a couple of free transfers, then it's probably wise to just get rid of him. And at the moment, I think that Fulham are one of the best teams to target if you need a new defender. Robinson is the second most transferred in player. I would also consider getting in Castani or Anderson at 4.2, especially if you need the funds. And yeah, Fulham's fixtures are lovely going forward, and they've actually been decent when it comes to their defending all season. So when the fixtures gets better as well, I think they will do really well going forward. So this weekend will be packed of football. Tomorrow, Saturday 21st, the deadline is the usual 11, and there will be 5 games on Saturday and 5 games on Sunday as well. No games for the 23rd, 24th, or 25th, but on Boxing Day, 26th of December, there will be, let's have a look, 8 games on Thursday, 26th, starting with a regular deadline at 11. Man City Everton being the early game on Boxing Day. We have games all through that day, and the game week actually finishes the next day on Friday, 27th. Brighton, Brentford, and Arsenal, Ipswich. And that's, as I said, that's on a Friday, and we just have to wait 2 more days before we get a new deadline. Game week 19 deadline is on Sunday, 29th, where the deadline, the first game is Leicester Man City in game week 19. So the deadlines are coming really, really fast the next couple of weeks. So make sure to pay attention to the deadlines and lock in your transfers early if you know that you have a busy schedule for yourself personally in the next couple of weeks. So I have used both my free transfers ahead of game week 17. 0 transfers left for me. So if I will do another transfer, I will have to take a hit. I will probably just play the team on the screen, to be honest. I was tempted to sell Havertz and Cunha to bring in Wood and Alexander Isak, but after the news about Cunha, most probably that it will most probably be liable to play on Sunday against Leicester. I'm tempted to just keep him and avoid taking a hit. So I think that this team on the screen probably will do well, and hopefully I will get another green arrow in game week 17. Quick look over at X to see if there are some new exciting FPL news. So I've been talking about Fulham defenders a couple of times already on this stream. After a quick look over at X, I can see that some managers are selling Ait Nouri to bring in the likes of Gabriel. I definitely think that if you have no Arsenal defender, or if you only have one Arsenal defender and have the funds to upgrade Ait Nouri to the likes of Gabriel or Timber, I would probably do that before thinking about a Fulham defender. But of course, if you need the funds in midfield or up front, then going for someone like Anderson or Castani probably is the best option. So luckily for the Ait Nouri owners, there are several good replacements for him this game week. I also like Milenkovic from Nottingham Forest, Kirk is probably still a decent option. Same goes for Lewis Hall from Newcastle. If you want a player in the same around the same price point. But if you have the possibility to upgrade to Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, someone like that, that's probably an even better option. But if you need the funds, getting in Castani or Anderson probably is really good as well. Did Aitnori to Robinson this week? I have no Arsenal defenders. Cheap defense, expensive attack. Yeah. Aitnori to Robinson. I talked about this in my team selection video as well, and we can see all the top 3 transfers in and transfers out, and that transfer totally makes sense. Aitnuri, I've spoken about the bad fixture. Wolves have a fixture swing next game week. Decent fixture this game week, so I will probably keep Cunha, but really tough fixtures for Fulham going forward. Aitnuri, not been performing. I think that he has 3 consecutive game weeks with 0 points. Of course, he get -2 in game week 16 as well. So not that he has performed at the desired level for the last game weeks, and suspended, of course, for game week 17, and he will return in game week 18 with a tough fixture and will still be on 4 yellow. So yeah, makes totally sense to sell Aitnuri and Robinson when we consider Fulham's form and upcoming fixtures. That transfer probably was a no-brainer earlier this week. I actually think that when it comes to Fulham defense, that after we got the news about the Kenny Tete injury, I actually think that he is probably better value than Robinson. But of course, that transfer is a bit more short term, even though it's for a couple of months. It's probably a transfer waiting to happen, but I still think that Castani is a really good option at the moment. Good luck. What do you think of Saka's captaincy with Declan Rice's return? This makes Saka more... Yeah. Yeah, I like Saka better when they have Declan Rice and Odegaard in the team. So, of course, that strengthens Saka's appeal a little bit. But when we consider Saka's goal threat for the last 3 game weeks, it hasn't been that great. And when we talk about game week 12 and game week 13 as well, he kind of overperformed his XG a bit. So I'm not sure if Saka is a good captain option for game week 17. To be honest, I'll put some stats up on the screen about their opponent in game week 17, Crystal Palace. They must be one of the most underrated defenses recently. So this is numbers from the last 4 game weeks. Crystal Palace, they've only kept 1 clean sheet, but when we take a look at those other stats, it's really impressive. Only conceded 4 goals, 5 big chances in 4 games. That's pretty good. 11 shots on target conceded is also good, and of course an expected goals conceded of 2.98 is really, really impressive numbers from Crystal Palace. Actually, the only team with better defensive stats at the moment is Arsenal. So the two most solid defenses for the last 4 game weeks playing against each other in game week 17. I'm not really sure if there will be a lot of goals in this game, especially because Arsenal is playing away. If it was at the Emirates, I think that it probably would have been a little bit different, but I wouldn't consider selling Saka because we know about his quality, and at some point he will start scoring again. And Arsenal actually have good fixtures coming up, so Saka is a definite keep for me at the moment, but I think there are better captain options in week 17. And actually, when we consider the bookies' predictions for clean sheets, Crystal Palace is not in the top 3, but Arsenal, they are first. They are given 42% chance of a clean sheet against Crystal Palace in game week 17. Fulham are actually next on the list, and Chelsea, they are third when they go travel to Goodison Park to play against Everton. Thank you, my friend, and wish you all the best. Thanks. Best of luck to you as well. And hopefully your captain will do well in game week 17. As mentioned, I will probably go for Mo Salah. So I'm really hoping that Mo Salah will have a decent game week playing away against Spurs, one of the worst defensive sides for the last 4 game weeks. So hopefully the Mo Salah captaincy will work out in game week 17. So that would be my advice if you have Mo Salah. Go Mo Salah captain instead of Saka, especially in game week 17. Okay, I'll be with you, Captain. Hopefully it will work out for us. At least it makes sense when we consider both eye tests and the stats. Saka, he has been playing really far wide out on that right hand side for Arsenal the last few game weeks. Salah, he has done, of course, really, really well. So hopefully this will continue in game week 17. No interesting headlines over at X. A lot of FPL managers locking in their teams. I can see that most, from what I can see, have Salah as their GW17 captain. A lot of managers putting Rodgers on their bench as well for Aston Villa's fixture against Man City. Why is everyone talking about Castani? Well, the reason why people are talking about Castani is the news about the injury to Kenny Tete. So he will be out for several weeks, maybe up to 2 months, and Timothy Castani is the most likely backup, so he will probably start games. So Robinson and Castani will probably be Fulham's left and right back in the next weeks. And Castani is a decent player if he can get enough game time. So I think that at 4.2 that Timothy Castani is actually a really good punt. I also like my transfer in. Of course, that's the reason why I brought him in. Anderson, 4.2. Real big threat at set pieces. Last season at Crystal Palace, he was way better than Guehi when it comes to both bonus points and attacking threats. So if I were to rank the Fulham defenders at the moment, I would probably put Castani first, especially if you have another playing defender on your bench. Anderson would be second, and the same goes for him. If you have someone to play in a rotation, I would probably go for the value options in Castani and Anderson. But if you will have to rely on the player to play most game weeks, then Robinson is probably still the better option, even though he is a bit more expensive. So no exciting news or text really. Nothing from after the press conferences and nothing new on the Cunha ban. When Wolves' new manager was asked earlier today, he was talking about Cunha as probably being available, like he was talking about his fitness and not really concerned about Cunha being banned for game week 17. And I would be really surprised to see if the FA are doing something tomorrow after the game week has started. I can't really see that happening. They have had close to a week to do something, so it will be really surprising if they do something on a Saturday, the day where the new game week starts. So I definitely think that he will get something for what happened after their game in game week 16. I think that he'll probably play game week 17 against Leicester, which is perfect, but then he'll probably receive a ban or at least a big fee if he's not suspended for game week 18. And it's kind of perfect and a bit lucky for us Cunha owners, to be honest, because most of us probably would have started to thinking about selling Cunha for game week 18, because I talked about Ait Nouri and the Wolves fixtures. It gets really tough after the game against Leicester in game week 17. So Cunha, he's probably a sell even if he doesn't get banned. So looking at potential Cunha replacements might be wise even if he doesn't receive the ban. So many are thinking that he probably still will get, even though it will not happen for game week 17. Van Nilsson is probably not on the top of my watch list. He has some small fitness concerns over him, so he will probably play in game week 17, but his deputy Enes Ünal, he has done well recently as well, and he's will probably be ready to start games soon as well. Will definitely eat into Evan Nilsson's minutes. I plan on selling Cunha next week for Jackson if Jackson stays on for yellow cards. Yeah, it's been really frustrating for me seeing Jackson play. He has been so close to getting a yellow card a couple of times as well, but on my game week 12 wildcard, one of the reasons why I did not go for Jackson was actually because of the 4 yellow cards. I had Ait Nouri on my wildcard as well on 4 yellow cards, so I didn't really want any more players on 4 yellows in case they were banned for the same game week. Then all of a sudden I just had 10 available players. So yeah, if Jackson stays on 4 yellows, I think that he is a decent buy next game week. Chelsea still really good fixtures going forward, so Jackson a really good option if you can upgrade Cunha to Jackson. My favorite at the moment is Alexander Isak. Next on the list for me personally would be Chris Wood. One of my nemesis this season. Usually I don't like those kinds of players that don't really pass the eye test or put up good attacking numbers, so he has over exceeded expected goals by a lot, but one of the reasons why I did not buy Wood earlier was because of the threat from Avuni. Last season we thought that they rotated a bit more and Wood was like a 60 to 70 minutes man, but he's had a great summer, so no injuries. So at the moment, I think that Wood is a good buy, to be honest. And Nottingham Forest have really good fixtures coming up, and Wood has shown that he is their penalty taker as well. So Chris Wood is a good option, and my Kuna replacements will be, if you have the funds, Isak. Next on the list is Chris Wood, as mentioned, and Jackson would be my third choice. Still like Evan Nilsson, but of course both Isak and Jackson far better options. And if you want to downgrade, Cunha would be my preferred option. The thing is with Jimenez, I've talked about Fulham's good fixtures. They have a couple of decent defenders at the moment. Robinson, of course, one of the most transferred in players. They have Anderson, 4.2, Castani, 4.2, Iwobi in midfield. The thing is with Jimenez, he had some game weeks where he did really well, but I can see more rotation now with the fixtures coming thick and fast. So Muniz will probably start a couple of games as well. So my priority from Fulham, if you want to buy Fulham players, would be probably a defensive double up with the really good value options, maybe Robinson and one of the 4.2s. And if you have a spot in your midfield, taking a punt on Iwobi is probably better at the moment than going for Raul Jimenez. So my transfer in this game week, I sold Ait Nouri before he dropped in price. I brought in Anderson. I knew that he was going to be fit, and on the press conference today, he was declared fit. Not sure if he'll start, so I'll have him on my bench, even though Fulham have a really good fixture for game week 17. I will have Anderson on my bench. Will play Masraoui against Bournemouth. Gabriel, of course. And Lewis Hall will get a new chance in my team after a really, really good performance in game week 16. So I don't really need Anderson this game week, but Fulham, they have really good fixtures coming up. And at the moment, my team is pretty well set up for the coming game weeks when it comes to my defense. I have Lewis Hall, Kirkis, and Anderson, Masraoui as well. Gabriel, he will play most weeks, but I have 4 other decent options in defense that probably and hopefully will do well going forward. If I knew that Kenny Tete was injured, I would probably take a punt on Castani. Similar price to Anderson, 4.2. Will probably start games for Fulham going forward, but yeah, I think that Anderson will do well. If you have a team like mine with 5 starting defenders, then I think it's fine to go with Castani or Anderson. But if you want to play your new defender every game week, I would probably go with Robinson. something when it comes to captaincy for game week when it comes to captaincy for game week 17, something I think that's not talked about enough is the Spurs team. They have their first choice goalkeeper Vicario. He's out. Van de Ven starting center back. Romero as well. They are out. Davis, the deputy, he is injured as well. Udogi, he's a doubt for game week 17. Pedro Porro has not been performing lately, so he has actually been benched to Jed Spence, who has got a lot of praise from Postecoglou. I think that this Spurs defense is really depleted at the moment. They are heavily relying on a game like they had in the Carabao Cup against Man United. They like have to score 4 or 5 goals to win games at the moment. I think that Liverpool's fixture in game week 17 is actually really good. So hopefully Mo Salah, my captain, can deliver in game week 17. Arsenal playing against Crystal Palace. I like especially Arsenal defense for game week 17. I'll quickly show you the stats from Crystal Palace last game weeks. That's Salah. This one. These are Crystal Palace stats from the last 4 game weeks. 1 clean sheet, only conceded 4 goals in 4 game weeks, which is decent. Second best in the league. Big chances, only conceded 5 big chances in the last 4 game weeks. That's really good. Same goes for shots on target, 11. And they have an expected goals conceded of only 2.98, so close to 3, but it's second in the league, only beaten by Arsenal, who are the team with the best defensive stats. So Arsenal, the best defensive side against Crystal Palace, actually the second best defense for the last 4 game weeks. I don't really see a lot of goals in this game. I was really close to sell both Havertz and Cunha to bring in Wood and Alexander Isak, but after the news that Cunha probably will be liable to play in game week 17 against Leicester, I've decided to not take the hit. I will keep Havertz and I will keep Cunha. My transfer next game week will probably be something like FPL FOMO talks about, selling Cunha for game week 18. I don't have the funds at the moment to bring in Jackson. I will have to do another transfer as well. But let's see how game week 17 goes and if there are any injuries, suspensions. If I need to sell another player, it will most likely be a downgrade to make me afford the upgrade from Cunha to Jackson, like FPL FOMO talked about earlier. Charlie, hello Charlie. Nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. Just spoken about Arsenal and Crystal Palace, and that they are actually the two best defensive teams in the last 4 game weeks. Let's see, I can get this back. Ready for the new game week, Charlie? Made any transfers ahead of game week 17? I've actually done 2 transfers. Sold Kevin De Bruyne to bring in Salah, and to afford the upgrade, I sold Ait Nouri to Fulham centre back 4.2 Anderson. If I had news about Timothy Castani being available, I would probably take a punt on Castani instead of Anderson, but I think both are equally good, so yeah. That Palace seems awful defensively, but so good at the same time. This is my observation as well. The thing is, when we take a look at the stats, they haven't really had any big chances against them, even though they feel so vulnerable. And I had Henderson for the first 12 game weeks. It's kind of frustrating seeing that right after I sell Henderson on my game week 12 wildcard, they have their best defensive period right after. But yeah, I made 2 transfers, one being a -4, Welbeck to Wood, Semenyo to Amad Diallo. Yeah, should be decent transfers. One of the most transferred out players is Danny Welbeck ahead of game week 17. One or the most transferred in player is actually Amad Diallo. So those moves makes perfectly sense. Who would you bench? Evan Nilsson, Rodgers, Diallo, or Cunha? I would probably bench Rodgers out of those, to be honest. Would definitely play Cunha and start him if he is not banned. I think that Leicester is a really good fixture for Wolves. So Cunha would definitely start. Amad Diallo, if you brought him in this game week, I would probably just play him, playing at home against Bournemouth. Bournemouth kind of underrated as well when it comes to their defensive ability, but of course, Man United, they have the quality to beat them at home. So Diallo and Cunha would definitely be nailed on to start for my team. It would be between Evan Nilsson and Rodgers, and I would probably play Evan Nilsson, to be honest. Kind of tough fixtures for both. I would play the number 9 with actually Bournemouth, one of the teams which are underperforming their XG the most, so they have a lot of chances. Evan Nilsson is involved in most of the chances. Both him and Semenyo have been kind of unlucky for the last game weeks, so Evan Nilsson could actually have a hole at any time. So yeah, Rodgers bench for me. I know that Man City have not been their usual self recently, but as I said, for Man United, we know that Man City, they have a lot of quality in their team as well, and playing at the Etihad, I think that they will probably win against Aston Villa. Okay, I will bench Rodgers. I don't know why, but I have a feeling all of them return and Palmer blanks, but it's so silly to bench him at 11 million. Rodgers is at home as well, by the way. Yes, of course, Aston Villa playing at home. Sorry, I actually actually talked about this in my team selection video when I talked about selling Kevin De Bruyne, so yeah, I should have known. Sorry about that, but still think that Rodgers probably is the one I would bench, even though Aston Villa are playing at home, to be honest. And I definitely know the feeling when it comes to benching players like this. Usually, I actually have been quite good at nailing down the right players and benching the players that blanks and having the ones that performs in my starting 11. But recently, when it comes to from game week 8 to game week 12, I had a rotation between Semenyo, Smith Rowe, and Rodgers, and I always got the player who scored the most points on my bench. And it was always the player with the toughest fixture. So most of the times it's down to luck, right? And I would say that I probably was a bit unlucky, but hopefully, Charlie, the players in your starting 11 will outscore Rodgers for game week in game week 17. I would definitely start Diallo since you brought him in this game week, and Cunha against Leicester is. I know that Wolves are not in their best form, but I think that Leicester is a really good fixture for them. So Cunha would start for me, and Evan Nilsson as well as mentioned. He is getting into good positions, taking a lot of shots. So I think that he should start as well. So yeah, makes sense to bench Rodgers out of those four. What are your predictions for this game week? My prediction when it comes to I've mostly spoken about the games that my players are involved in. I've spoken about the Arsenal Crystal Palace game. I was kind of surprised to see Crystal Palace defensive stats, to be honest, that they are second for most of the defensive statistics, only beaten by Arsenal. And I think that this will probably be a low scoring game. I definitely think that Arsenal are favorites, and the bookies have Arsenal as their favorite for predicted clean sheets for game week 17. But I can see a 1-2-0, something like that. I don't really see Saka as a really hot captain option for game week 17. I would definitely go Salah as my captain. I've also taken a look at the defensive statistics for Spurs, and they have actually kept one clean sheet and only conceded 6 goals for the last 4 game weeks, which is actually not that bad. But when you take a look at shots on target, big chances against them, and expected goals, Spurs are only beaten by Southampton and Leicester when it comes to those statistics. So Spurs have really poor defensive stats. Romero is still out. Van de Ven is out. Their first choice goalkeeper Vicario, he's out. The deputy Davis, he is out. Dogi is a doubt as well. So I can see a lot of games in the Spurs against Liverpool game, and that's one of the reasons why I sold Kevin De Bruyne to bring in Salah and captain him. I was actually kind of tempted to keep Kevin De Bruyne against Aston Villa, just have one more game week without Salah. It was really exciting last game week, and it went pretty well. Seeing Salah only scored 5 points, but I think that I had to get Salah back this game week. I think De Bruyne will do very well over the next few, but Salah is the best FPL pick this year. Yeah, definitely. I, I was kind of reluctant to sell Kevin De Bruyne, to be honest, but it was the easiest way for me to get Salah back, and I didn't really want to sell Saka. Cole Palmer is definitely one to keep, considering Chelsea's fixtures and his position in that Chelsea team. I do believe that Man City's fixtures from game week, is it from game week 18 or 19? They have the best fixtures actually, so I will probably look at getting in a Man City player. It will probably not be Haaland. I'll have to save up 3, maybe 4 free transfers to restructure my team to get Haaland in, but yeah, it's probably not impossible, but it's not one of my main priorities. But I'll probably look at someone like Guardiola to get him back. I had him for game week 1 to 12 before I wildcarded him out in game week 12, but Guardiola is probably one to keep an eye on when Man City's fixtures gets a lot better from game week 19. I'll have a quick look at their fixtures. Man City from it's from game week 18. They play against Everton at home, Leicester away, West Ham at home, Brentford away, Ipswich away, and then they have some tough fixtures from game week 23. They have Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Spurs before it gets a bit better after that. So from game week 18 to 22, I will probably look at getting in a Man City player. Really good run for Man City from 18 to 22, but as mentioned, their fixtures gets really tough from game week 22 all the way until game week 28. So Man City players not a big priority for me, but I think that probably someone like Guardiola could be decent from next game week. Kevin De Bruyne, he was a punt for me when the Everton against Liverpool fixture got postponed in game week 15. I had kind of a weak bench that game week. I didn't want to have Salah on my bench, so I took a punt on selling Salah to bring in De Bruyne. So I've used 2 free transfers but at least Kevin De Bruyne outscored Mo Salah in game week 16. So he outscored him with 1 point, got 2 points in game week 15. So over the last 2 game weeks, Kevin De Bruyne has outscored Mo Salah by 3 points. So it was probably not worth it considering I've used 2 free transfers on selling Salah and then bringing him back. So in hindsight, it was not worth it, but I definitely think that it was worth a punt. And in game week 15, Kevin De Bruyne actually had, I think, what 0.80 something expected goal involvement, so he was unlucky in game week 15. Got an assist in game week 16. Bit lucky with that one, but 6 points for Kevin De Bruyne, clean sheet point as well. So yeah, it's not the end of the world. Another problem with Kevin De Bruyne is that he is expensive, of course, not on penalties. He's had quite a lot of fitness issues, so if Man City, if they are leading comfortably, Kevin De Bruyne, he tends to get subbed out around 60, 70 minutes to to rest. So that's probably not what we want in our fantasy assets, especially in December. So Kevin De Bruyne, of course, he has a lot of qualities, but at the moment, I think that Salah easily is a much better fantasy option, even though he is more expensive. And one of the reasons why I decided just to sell De Bruyne and bring in Salah is after taking a look at Everton and Crystal Palace defensive stats, they are actually two of the best defensive teams for the last 4 game weeks. So I was not really tempted to captain either Saka or Cole Palmer for game week 17. So that made it even easier for me to sell De Bruyne and bring in Salah, just to give me probably the best captain option for game week 17 as well. I think that if I had Isak, I would consider captaining him for game week 17. I've been considering actually taking a hit, but I've decided to not take a hit, but I considered selling both Havertz and Cunha to bring in Alexander Isak and Chris Wood. Especially if Cunha got the ban, that would be really tempting. But since Cunha most probably will play, I will just keep him for his fixture against Leicester in game week 17. And Havertz, of course, he will probably start again playing as Arsenal's number 9. If they score, he has the potential to be involved. So it's not been that great recently, blanked in game week 16. 1 assist, 5 points. Was it 5 or 6 points in game week 15? So Havertz has been a disappointment since I took a punt on him in game week 12, but don't necessarily see him as a priority sell and probably not for a hit. Best Cunha replacement if he is banned next week. If we have the funds, I would definitely go for Isak. Decent fixtures for Newcastle. Wilson is injured, so Isak will play up front. He will remain on penalties. So if you have the funds, Isak is probably the best option. Jackson as well, really good option with Chelsea's fixture. So if you have a free spot from Chelsea and the available funds to do Cunha to Jackson, that's probably decent as well. If you have to downgrade or pick someone around Cunha's price point, I would go Chris Wood. Good fixtures for Nottingham Forest. They had a couple of tricky fixtures recently, but it's getting better for Nottingham Forest, and I'm not that worried about Avoni. I think that Chris Wood is their number 9 at the moment. He is on penalties, so Chris Wood is a decent buy as well. So that would be my priority. I think I would put Isaac as my first priority, but of course you'll need the funds. Number 2 would be Chris Wood, and Jackson would be my third option. If you want a differential, I still think that Evan Nilsson from Bournemouth is a decent option. Bournemouth are the team that has underperformed their XG the most, so I think it's only a matter of time before the likes of Semenyo and Evan Nilsson bringing their managers some real FPL points. I know that a lot will probably speak about Jimenez and Fulham, rightly so, considering their good fixtures, but I think that Muniz will get more minutes. He's fit, he's done well recently, so you can see some rotation between Jimenez and Muniz. So I would, if I were to bring in Fulham players, I would prioritize getting their really good enabling defenders like Anderson, Castani. And if you have a spot in midfield, I think that Iwobi is really good as well. Okay, thank you for your help tonight. I'm going to go. Good luck this game week. Best of luck, Charlie. Hopefully you will get a green arrow in game week 17, and hopefully you will come back to my next live. I'm planning to set one up tomorrow ahead of the deadline, but if not, it will be as usual the night before the game week 18 deadline. So thanks for joining in, thanks for all your questions, and best of luck for game week 17. So I'll have to go soon as well. Let me know if you have any more questions ahead of the game week 17 deadline. As mentioned, I will probably try to set up a deadline stream tomorrow, but it's not 100%. If I'm not able to make it tomorrow, I will, as always, have a Q&A the night before the next deadline. Let's have a quick look. This will be ahead of game week 18, which is on Thursday, 26th Boxing Day. So I will have actually a stream on Christmas Day, 25th of December Q&A. And so if you're tired of family dinners and if you have 1 hour to spend on FPL, please tune in to my next live as well. So 14 hours until the deadline. Time to get some sleep. My transfers this game week has been Kevin De Bruyne and Ait Nouri out. I brought in Fulham's Anderson, centre back. He is fit again. Not sure if he'll start game week 17, but I can keep him on the bench. I would advise you to take a look at Anderson or maybe Castani as well if you want a Fulham defender. I think that at the moment they are better valued than Robinson. I sold Kevin De Bruyne. He was a punt for me when the Everton against Liverpool game got postponed. It was only a matter of time before I brought Salah back in, and this was the game week for me. I don't really like Saka or Cole Palmer as captain options for game week 17, which made it easier for me to do the Kevin De Bruyne to Salah move this game week. So this will probably be my team. Hopefully Cunha, he is rumored to be liable to play in game week 17, so he will start in game week 17 for me against Leicester. I considered to sell both Havertz and Cunha for a -8 to bring in Alexander Isak and Chris Wood, but I will wait and monitor the situation and see who does well in game week 17 and if there are any injuries. Hey mate, how are you? Sadly didn't jump on Robinson quick enough, so only had 4.6 to spend on Aitno replacement. Went for Castagna. He's 4.2 and almost guaranteed to start. I really like Castagna as an option at the moment, especially with the Kenny Tete injury. The last reports I read said around 8 weeks, and that's a lot of fantasy deadlines and game weeks going forward. So with Kenny Tete out for 8 to 10 weeks, Kazan should be starting right back for Fulham at 4.2 in decent fixtures. I think it's a decent move. I totally agree, Orange Apple. And I have been talking about Castan actually on this live stream, and I ranked him as the best Fulham defender to target at the moment, especially when it comes to value. I would pick Castani over Anderson as well, but I went early on Tuesday before we got the news about Kenny Tete, so that's the reason why I went Anderson. But I'm kind of confident in him as well. So last season for Crystal Palace, we saw his threat at set pieces. So Robinson is probably the best long-term option and maybe even a season keeper, but for the next game weeks, I would definitely prefer having Castani in the team. So maybe the fact that you didn't jump on Robinson early enough is a blessing in disguise, and hopefully for you, Castani will outscore Robinson going forward. Reasoning on Salah captain, just curious. I also have him captain at the moment, but not as convinced as some people are. Tottenham are still decent in comparison to Palmer with Everton. Yep. Actually, one of the reasons why I'm captaining Salah, I can quickly put it up on the screen. Oh, that's Saka. This is... Excuse me. This is Liverpool and Salah's opponent in game week 17, Spurs. Looks good at first for Spurs. They have kept one clean sheet in their last 4 game weeks and only conceded 6 goals, but it's those last 3 statistics that makes me really confident on captaining Mo Salah for game week 17. Big chances, they have had 15 big chances against them, which is 19th in the league. Shots on target 25, and they have an expected goals conceded of 8.96. So Spurs, they are actually one of the worst defensive teams. They actually had a bit of luck only conceding 6 goals. I know that that's decent, but I think that Spurs probably will get punished in game week 17. At the moment, they have a strong attack and a really weak defense. Romero is injured. Van de Ven is injured. Their first choice goalkeeper Vicario is injured. Actually, their centre back deputy Davis, he is injured as well. Udogi is a doubt for game week 17. I think he'll probably play, but they don't have their best defenders available, so I think that Spurs at the moment are relying on attack, as we saw against Man City. They have had one less day of rest because they played on Thursday as well. Would you play Fabianski or Sels? I think that they have around the same percentage when it comes to clean sheets. Bookies predicted clean sheets. So first of all, I would make a decision based on my team. So Nottingham Forest playing against Brentford. So if I had one of Mbumo or Visa, I would definitely bench Cells. And if I had someone like Joao Pedro playing against Fabianski, then I would definitely bench Fabianski. So if you don't own any players from Brentford or Brighton, then I would probably just play the home game, to be honest. Fabianski did actually really well, especially for 70 minutes last game week, game week 16. He got a lot of saves in that game as well. Let's see. Yeah. 4 points, made 8 saves. So Fabianski would probably be my preferred option, especially if you don't have any players from Brighton or Brentford. Yeah, Tumandis was, of course, to you. I would play Fabianski and back the home fixture, especially if you don't have any players from Brentford or Brighton. Orange Apple, don't think either will get clean sheet, but probably Cells as Forest have been better defensively in general. Yeah, I think that Nottingham Forest are one of the teams who are kind of underrated when it comes to their defense, together with the likes of Everton and Crystal Palace. To be honest, I don't really see a clean sheet for any of them, and I think that Fabianski, as shown in game week 16, probably has a better potential for save points and bonus. Would you start Lewis over Johnson? City been rubbish, but Johnson hasn't started much. He should start this week, but even then he's playing Liverpool. Even though Spurs have a really tough game against Liverpool, I would prefer playing Johnson, to be honest. think that at some point Man City will turn their season around, but they have not the best fixture in game week 17, playing away against Aston Villa. I don't really see Man City keeping a clean sheet in this fixture. Villa Park, I think that Aston Villa probably will score against Man City, so if it's between Rico Lewis or Johnson, I would start Johnson. I'm not saying that this should be the thing that we base our decisions on, but in addition, there will be more exciting to have a player in the last fixture, seeing that the Spurs Liverpool game are the last game on Sunday rather than having Rico Lewis blanking in the first game on Saturday. Currently I have Johnson starting. Yeah, I would do that as well. Sadly, got to go, mate, but thanks for the advice and best of luck this game week. Take care. Best of luck to you as well. Hopefully, there will be green arrows for all of us in game week 17. Which option would you choose? Play Fabianski and bench Joe Pedro for Rodgers, or play Sells and let JP play? Which do you think will score more points? Rodgers, Sells, or JP Fabianski? That would be Joe Pedro and Fabianski. I'd rather bench Rodgers over Joe Pedro. So that the fixtures are kind of even, but Joe Pedro will probably start playing up front and he is on penalties for Brighton. So in that case, I would probably play Joe Pedro and Sells. It's really close between Sells and Fabianski, and it's more of a coin toss really, but Joe Pedro, I would be really annoyed having Joe Pedro on my bench and Rodgers in my starting 11 if Rodgers blanked, to be honest. It would feel a lot better if I had Joe Pedro in my starting 11 who blanked, then I could probably just take the Rodgers bench points because it makes more sense to play Joe Pedro. But I would have the same mindset as you, trying to avoid having my attackers play against my defenders. So for me, Joe Pedro and Sells makes most sense, and since I would play Joe Pedro, I would bench Fabianski. No big news over at X since the press conferences. One of the most interesting things from today's press conferences was probably the injury to Kenny Tete. He will be out for 8 to 10 weeks. I think that this makes Castani a really good option. Robinson, he is the second most transferred in player at the moment, with over 550,000 transfers in, but at the moment I think that probably both Castani and Anderson are better value, especially when Anderson starts playing and starting games again. He is a big threat at set pieces, and priced at 4.2, I think that's a really, really good deal. Robinson, probably the better option long term, but especially if you have someone to rotate with, if you have another starting defender on your bench, I think that Castani and Anderson are decent punts at the moment. My transfers in this game week, I sold Ait Nouri to Anderson and Kevin De Bruyne to Salah. Salah will be my captain. I really like Liverpool's fixture this game week against Spurs. Spurs have been terrible defensively, even though they just conceded 6 goals. Their other defensive stats have been really bad, and this is expected goals against them, shots on target, and big chances against them. Spurs are one of the worst teams, so Salah will be my captain. Spurs also still have some injuries in defense, and their first choice goalkeeper Vicario is out. They will play Fraser Forster. I'm not sure if he is Premier League quality at the moment, so hopefully Liverpool can do well against Spurs. In addition, it's always fun to have your captain playing in the last fixture of the game week, and this is the case with Mo Salah and Liverpool in game week 17. They are playing on Sunday night against Spurs in the last fixture, so hopefully that game will be an enjoyable watch for the Salah captainers. Thanks to all who tuned in and to everyone who liked the stream, and to my new subscribers, thanks for subscribing. I always make a weekly team selection video where I take a quick look at last game week, team selection for the next game week. I have a watch list, transfer plans, and I always take a look at the captaincy for the next game week. So subscribe to the channel if you're interested. I always do a Q&A the night before the deadline, and when I find the time, I do a deadline stream as well. So subscribe to the channel if you're interested. Thanks for joining in, and best of luck for game week 17. Hopefully, I'll see you next time.